Hello, everyone, and welcome to another SDGC review discussion. My name is Jeff, and I'm here with John and Britt, and we're going to be talking about Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion for the PlayStation 5, and I think John's been playing it on the Switch. Once again, thank you to Square for providing us with these review codes and giving us the chance to cover the game before it's out. I finished the game yesterday. I played it for the first time. John has been playing the remaster as well. I think he played the original years ago, so this is his second time around. And Britt's played the original but hasn't had a chance to check out the remaster yet. So good variety of perspectives, I think, to kind of give our thoughts on the game today. I just want to start off with like a little bit of my general impressions of it again as someone who'd never played it before. Overall, I really, really liked it. I think it's an excellent companion piece to Final Fantasy VII. It recontextualizes that game and even some of the characters and some of the events in it in a really, really profound way. So I've gone so many years without knowing this piece of the story, and now it's hard to imagine not knowing it. And I can't wait to either replay the original or to play the next parts of Remake. So that stuff aside, yeah, this was a really good game. My favorite bits about it were definitely the characters are really strong, especially I love the characterization of Zack. The game's a great length. Yeah, it's so Zack is such a good character. I can't wait we'll get into that in a little bit here. The game's a really good length. I honestly didn't know how they were gonna stretch this little Zack side story. I thought it was gonna be like a full length, like 40-50 hour RPG. I finished the main story in 12 hours and played around with some side stuff after the fact. I think right now I'm sitting at about 15. I've maybe got a little bit to go, but yeah, it's like a nice tight little package. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It's gorgeous. Like everything they've done feels like it fits very nicely with 7 Remake in terms of aesthetic and gameplay and stuff like that. So just overall, it's a really solid remaster. I think the only thing, which I'll talk about a little bit further, is I don't think it's a good entry point. I think they're kind of selling it as like it's good for existing fans and good for people who haven't played any series before. I really don't think anyone should start with this one. I think at least they should play 7 Remake, but ideally I think this is best for people who've played the original Final Fantasy VII still, but I'll touch on that a little bit later. So I think maybe just before we get into the remaster, like Britt and John, just in general, like what do you think of Crisis Core? I mean, you both played it at launch years ago. Like, just curious what your general thoughts are on it as a game and the story as a whole.
I'll let Britt go first. I just want to warn you, I've got a little puppy sleeping in my lap, and she's murmuring in her sleep. So if you hear a little on the recording, that's what that is. So,
so Crisis Core, I played it when I was. We already said that the game came out in 2008, right?
2008. That's when it came out. Yep.
Yeah. So it's a year after I graduated high school, so I was like 18 years old. And I didn't know. That's when like the 360 and the PS3 and all those stuff were really ramping up with multiplayer games. So I didn't know if I was gonna like this game or if it was gonna draw me in. But it's just like you said, Jeff. It was one of those like nice, cozy, really just kind of draws you in. Like it's cute, it's quirky. Like it doesn't take itself too seriously in certain spots. And credit to that goes to Zack, but it definitely hits a way that you don't expect it to, and it just it stays with me this day. I remember, I didn't own my own PSP. I had a boyfriend at the time, and I was borrowing his PSP, and he was in my room with me while I was playing. And I remember I got to the last scene in the game, and I had to go out into the hall and beat it because I knew what was gonna happen, and I knew I was gonna just bawl. And I did, and that moment has stuck with me my entire life. Like that the ending to that game sticks out. It's one of my like greatest kind of like gaming memories, is just knowing that was coming and still not being prepared for it. Like I said, it's just an overall wonderful game. The combat's fun. The characters are so wonderful. Even, the new additions. Everything just feels really solid for, just a PSP spin-off game.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think, obviously most people playing this probably have played 7 to some degree, and there's different approaches to prequels. Like, sometimes they kind of work more standalone. I think this one definitely relies a lot on 7, but sometimes that's really good because there's a very different experience knowing the outcome that's already predetermined and still, like, hoping against hope that it won't go that way, even though you know where it's going to end up in the end, and just seeing how it gets there and going through that journey. Yeah, it's really, really emotional for sure. What about you, John?
Well, I first played Crisis Core in 2008 while I was in Afghanistan after my son had been born. So, obviously not a replacement for being there for your kid entering this world, but it was a nice coping mechanism because I was like, oh, look, Final Fantasy in Afghanistan, this helps at least. Now, this is one of those rare Final Fantasy games that I played once and didn't return to. Not because I didn't enjoy it. In fact, I loved it. I just lost my PSP and was never able to get another one because I was preoccupied with other things. But what I want to say is, from a visual standpoint, this is much more of a, and again, I'm talking about visuals here, not gameplay mechanics. This is more of a visual remake than a remaster. In fact, if you want to call it a remaster, then it's one of the most impressive remasters I've ever come across.
Visually, like, at times, it's clearly not quite on the level of FF7, especially
right.
especially the PS5 version. But at times, it looks very close to 7 remake in certain areas. It's
I'm playing it on Switch, right? So obviously, you're getting a better visual experience than I am. That being said, this game, of course, at its core, it's a.
You mean at its Crisis Core?
I didn't even mean to do that, but now I wish I had. At its Crisis Core, this game it originated on a handheld device, and so even though it runs fine on Switch, it's a solid 30 frames a second. I haven't seen a single dip. It's at 720p handheld, and I'm playing it on the OLED screen, right? So the colors really pop. You're not getting that 60 frames a second PS5 or PC experience, but something about the game just feels at home on a handheld system.
Well, we'll talk about that, I guess, if we would talk about the game overall, but I think it definitely, that's the one place where I think the PSP roots really show. You can overhaul, the combat feels very modern. The visuals look amazing. The overall production quality is super high, but you still feel that mobile or portable structure in the small environments, the very short missions, the side missions are mostly 5 or 10 minutes, but I think that's great. I think that's fine. Like you said, that it's available. I didn't even think of playing it on the Switch. It's really great for something that you can just pick up for a little bit at a time and don't have to commit 5 hours to.
Well, and in that, you can really see the game's portable origins, right? This is a game that was meant to be picked up, played for an hour, and then put down, and then picked up again later, right? Which is why you've got that sort of that mission structure. Now, the game from a gameplay standpoint, it is very much still a PSP game. It's the exact same game that you played on PSP in 2008. Which means that you are getting some repetitive environments. You are revisiting the same areas for a lot of these side missions over and over. That being said, the combat remains enjoyable to the point where none of that really matters to me, right? It doesn't bother. Your mileage will vary on that one, I think. But for me, I really dig the combat in Crisis Core, especially the slot system, which I guess we can get into.
Is that the digital mind leave?
Yeah. I can never remember what it's called.
I think it's cool. It's kind of nice that you don't have to think about it that much, but I felt like it wasn't explained super well. When they first introduced it, I was streaming the game the first night we got the code, and it's I think they just could have done a little bit better. There's a lot of terms thrown there, they kept talking about limit verge or limit ver, and I'm I didn't quite know. I was okay, so I just don't have to do anything. It's like a slot machine that runs in the background in the top left, and it gives you your limit breaks and your summons, and as you unlock more stuff in the game, you meet more characters, your relationships with them will increase, and so you have like more of a chance of getting assists or limit breaks from characters that you've really interacted with, which is cool because like a lot of the game is really about that bond between Zack and either like his soldier companions or his friends that he meets along the way, and stuff like that. So I actually think it really does a good job. Like there's even little flashbacks that play. Again, the game did not explain what was happening, so in the middle of a fight, I was
watching your stream. Your reaction was hilarious.
What the hell is happening? They didn't really explain what was going on, but like once I understood that, getting further the game, it's very cool. Like it all kind of ties in, that camaraderie and friendship and stuff like that into it, which is really at the core of the game. So I thought it was cool.
Would you say, Jeff, that the real core of the Crisis were the friends we made along the way?
Sure, I won't argue with that.
Okay.
I'm not going to say it.
Can I say something about the summons real quick? It's
Sure.
So cool. About like one of my favorite things about the combat in the game are the summon effects, because when you summon like, Odin or Bahamut or Ifrit, the game actually switches seamlessly to an FMV video, and then switches back to gameplay, which I think is just
really quick,
a really cool
and they
touch.
look gorgeous.
Yeah,
yeah,
they look beautiful. And it's really neat to see those, because I mean visually all of the summons are based on the Final Fantasy VII summon designs, right? And it's really cool to see some of those summons that weren't in Final Fantasy VII Remake represented here. Obviously these summons were in the original game, but to see them displayed in a much more consistent visual style is a really cool treat.
Well, and I think for me, not having played this before, I guess, maybe for some people now, 7 Remake has kind of like dulled it a little bit, but it must have been really cool at the time seeing like Midgar or Shinra HQ in a different way than you do in the original.
It was.
For me, like I've always, I've been thinking about the next parts of Remake and like what Cosmo Canyon will look like, but seeing Nibelheim in this one, like, because that was always one of my favorite parts of the original game, was when you get to Calm and there's the flashback and Cloud's explaining everything, and which obviously is like central to this game, but going back to the Shinra Mansion and stuff like that and seeing them, especially playing on PS5 with this remaster, so gorgeous, which I assume is very similar to how they're going to look when we get there in Remake, but it's really cool actually being able to explore a little bit more of these areas and see them from a different perspective and just spend some time in them. Yeah, really, really cool.
Britt, I have a question for you.
Shoot.
How do you feel about, because correct me if I'm wrong, the game has some new voice actors, right? There's some new voice work in the game. I don't think this is the same actor who as Zack that we've heard before.
It is not.
It is not. So Britt, you as like I would say this group's Zack stan.
Yes.
How do you feel about the change?
It's a little jarring for me, Jeff. I'm not sure if you watched the YouTube video I sent you.
I haven't
comparing
not yet,
the
no.
two, but I think the original Zactor. Yeah, I'm gonna stick with it.
Yeah,
the original
go for
Zactor, is it's just been so ingrained in my brain since a young age. I had Crisis Core, I had Advent Children, and those were 2 big points in my life, because I would say early 2000s, like mid 2000s is really when video games started becoming popular, and we got the movie, we got another game. It was just really cool to kind of grow into seeing video games becoming more mainstream like that, and like seeing a game get a sequel like that. It just felt really cool to me. So, I grew up with that Zack, and this new one's fine. Like, I watched Jeff play the first 2 hours of Crisis Core, but there was definitely just something off for me. I think the new one's fine. He's not bad. Like, I don't have anything against him. I'm not, like, rioting or anything like that. I just think the previous Zack had more of the Zack aesthetic. Like, he sounded like, because they describe Zack as a puppy all the time in that game, which I absolutely love, because it's true. But this new one, he sounds like a bit he sounds a bit more young.
He's got more Zackitude.
He sounds a lot like he sounds more nasally. So again, I don't think he's bad. I don't think nobody should play this game because of it. It's just not what I'm used to. And like I said, when I was watching Jeff play the game, like I was slowly getting used to it, but I still just prefer the old one.
Yeah, and
I don't think any like. Oh, sorry, Jeff.
no,
go
I was
ahead.
gonna say,
Go
yeah.
ahead.
So, like, from my perspective, someone who has no familiarity, I purposely didn't watch the comparison because I just, again, trying to approach this game, I didn't read any other reviews. I really wanted to just go in fresh and bring my own take to it. But I think, I think he was really good. It definitely, obviously it wasn't jarring for me because this is my first introduction to Zack. I think the voice acting in general is probably not. I mean, it's a PSP game. Like, they've obviously recast. I think it seems like most of the core cast were reprised by like their 7 remake companions, like Cloud and Sephiroth and stuff like that. But I believe most of like the less important characters, they're probably reusing the original VAs. I think Zack in general fits in well because like the mid 2000s, late 2000s, we still were like voice acting in games has really increased in quality in the last 5 years. And I don't know if it's the direction or the script is definitely, I'm not going to be too hard on it. The script is a little melodramatic. It's a little cheesy. I don't mind it because I like a little bit of cheese. And I think the game has a lot of heart, so I can forgive if there's some corny moments. But
I blame Gag.
Yeah, but I think in that context, this actor did a really good job with Zack. I definitely did get that puppy vibe. There's especially in the later chapters when you get to hang out with some downtime and stuff like that, and the humor moments, his reactions and stuff like that. It's I'm not gonna say it's not like gonna win an award for voice performance, but I think it fits the tone of the game really well, and I do think I figure even someone who's played the original, I think like anything, once you just actually get to sit down with the game yourself and really immerse yourself in it and adjust to it, I think it's gonna go over probably better at least than Chris Pratt as Mario. I think this one's gonna be fine.
Another thing that really jarred me is when spoilers for 7 remake, when Zack came up at the end. I immediately knew it wasn't his voice. I was like, that's not the same Zack, and
this isn't my Zack.
Yeah, I was like, that kind of put like a bad taste in my mouth, and then I went back and I watched like videos of the original Zack and the new one, and I was like, yeah, I just prefer the OG, but that's just my preference.
Something else that I wanted to mention about Crisis Core is the characters of Genesis and Hollander.
Actually, sorry, John. We'll get into that. There's one more thing I want to say, just like about the game.
Oh, right,
generally.
sure. No, go ahead.
No, it's all good. Because next I do want to talk about the story and the characters. Obviously, this is going to be spoiler free if anyone's worried about that. We're going to talk a little bit of details, but we won't ruin anything. But the only other thing I noticed is, I guess one of the big negatives, I think, especially if someone hasn't, that's why I really think people should play 7, is the game does not do much world building. I really think it assumes that you're very familiar with 7. It just has no sense of place and location. Like right when you start the game, you're jumping over to Wutai, and it's just like you're in Shinra HQ, and then all of a sudden you're in Wutai, and you would never know that you're all the way across the world on a different continent, which is a big deal in the context of the game. Like, Zack is going on these big, long missions for long periods of time, and I think not just that one, like in general, jumping around to his hometown and stuff like that. And maybe it's part of the limitation of the PSP, but I feel like they've got all these big summon cutscenes. They could have had some, in movies they'd call it like an establishing shot or something like that, where you get like a little bit of like a bigger picture, like, an overhead view of the location, or like a view of crossing the ocean or something like that, just to like give that little bit more sense of journey. But it's very much like we're just teleporting around the world. So I think that's kind of, again, like, people aren't really going to know where these places are, or are going to miss that really important context if they haven't played 7. Especially like in general, like it talks about Shinra a lot, but I think they're a lot better established in 7. So that's my only like real negative, and why, again, I really think this is more for people who are already fans of the series.
Yeah, like the only kind of like, I would say, like, movement you get in the game as far as like, them actually traveling somewhere is just that cutscene where they're heading to, Nibelheim, and that's really it. So I mean, if they're doing that, if they're sitting at the back of a rickety ass truck for traveling days at a time, I mean, I guess it's not too important to the story, because this game is very to the point.
So John, you're going to talk about Genesis.
Well, just not even some of the characters in general.
Let's set it up. So Genesis is kind of the, other than Sephiroth, it's not really spoiler. Like, there's some encounters with Sephiroth, but generally I think Genesis is the main antagonist of the game.
Oh, for sure. 100%.
Yeah.
Based, of course, visually on legendary Japanese pop singer Gact.
Gact. We gotta talk about Gact.
Gacting it up. We're just gacting up on this podcast.
That's right.
Just gacting that.
I'm actually I was a big Gact fan, so this was another reason why I wanted to play the game.
Really?
When it came out, yeah.
You were a Gact fan.
I was a Gact fan. I still am. I think his music's incredible. It's great.
Jeff, how do you feel about Gact?
I liked Angeal's relationship with Zack. I think definitely
Gact, not Zack. Gact.
I'm not doing that.
Gact.
I think I liked it on paper, and it like gave Zack a lot of his drive and motivation, having that kind of mentor and that good friend that he lost. I think Angeal could have been like developed a little bit better. I never really got that attached to him as a character. Like, he was likable, but I would have liked like a little bit more time with him, or a little bit more deeper exploration, I guess. Genesis, I found kind of a weak antagonist. In general, I thought the first half of the game was a little spotty for me in terms of like the plot and the narrative. I know they were trying to like introduce some new elements, but I think the second half of the game is a lot stronger when it gets more tied in with the events of 7. It's not to say it was like all bad, but just in general, I thought it was kind of like meandering, and the whole plot with Hollander and the experience, like a lot of it's just backstory that I think maybe was like stretched a little bit too thin, and I never fully understood Genesis like motivations, and obviously the Loveless play. I think they were trying to do the ending was really good actually with how they tied that in with the three characters of the play and stuff like that. I won't spoil that, but yeah, I just think it was a little unfocused at times and like just a little bit underbaked. But definitely the second half of the game, the story, when everything kind of starts to tie together, is strong, and it wouldn't work as well without that first half of the game. So I get why it's there. Like, it really lays the groundwork. But yeah, that was my thoughts on it. I don't know.
So yeah, Genesis is just kind of a weak character.
Especially when he's Britt, especially when he's sharing the stage with like Sephiroth, right? An established, at this point already in 2008, just legendary fan favorite villain. Because
every time I'm like talking with Genesis, I'm like, fuck it, like give me more Sephiroth, which is really cool in this. I actually loved seeing Sephiroth. I've always known him as like a lunatic, like homicidal,
but like it was seeing him pre-villain is weird.
But it's like it took me a bit, and I was like, this is actually cool, like seeing him have friends, and kind of like getting to know him a little bit better. It was really interesting, and actually I thought it worked really well.
It definitely gives a new side to Sephiroth that the original doesn't. In the original, Sephiroth is just this weirdo who's obsessed with his mom.
It's pretty one note, right?
And stuff. Yeah, and he's not memorable. It's Crisis Core is what makes Sephiroth memorable to me, because it actually gives him personality. It shows the kind of person he was. It shows you why Zack idolized him. It really fleshed out his character growth, and feeds into his character art, so it really makes you care, like, wow, like Sephiroth turned into this dude who's insane and obsessed with his mom, and it's really sad because he never used to be this way, and you would never get that perspective or that kind of depth from this character if you had not played Crisis Core.
Right.
And I think that's like, if anybody's on the fence about whether or not you want to play Crisis Core, I would, if you're a Sephiroth fan, I would absolutely do it to get to know him better and to get that kind of depth.
Well, just like, with the story of Crisis Core, like, originally, before I played it in 2008, it kind of came off to me as like, you've seen the story of Zack Fair, now play the game. And I was like, why do we have why? Like, I was like, Zack was such a minor character in Final Fantasy VII. Why do we need a game about Zack? But then after I played Crisis Core, I was like, okay, now I understand. Like, that was...
I was the same way. I told Britt I was going into this. I was like, all right, like, sure, this Zack guy, he's not Cloud. Like, I don't care about this guy. He was in a flashback for like 5 minutes. Like, what, he's gonna get his whole story? And then, like, I was just fucking, like, this was only... I cry in games sometimes. The last time I cried was probably Red Dead Redemption 2 a few years ago. And then Endwalker. Okay, I guess I cry pretty often. But this still was the first game in a while to, like, really just have me bawling. And, like, kudos. Like, that's, like, a criticism I kind of have backed off on. Like, who asked for this or who needs this? I'm like, you know what? I'll give everything a chance. There's a lot of stories that didn't need to be told. But... I think if the heart's there and it's got a really good personality, and it's just developed really well, like sometimes you don't you need something until you have it, and then you're really glad that they gave it to you. So, and that's what this game is for me, for sure.
I agree. This wasn't something that I thought I or anyone else needed when it was first announced way back when. And, because again, Jeff, like you said, I mean, I think Zack had maybe 5 minutes of screen time in Final Fantasy VII might be generous. Mm-hmm. He was a flashback character. And he was essentially used as a plot device, right, to further Cloud's story. So it's like, who cares about this guy? But...
And that's the thing about this, like, it doesn't just really, Zack's a great character, but it also, I think, makes Cloud a more interesting, a better character. Like, I was telling Britt, again, I always like Cloud in general. I don't think he's as boring as some people accuse him of being. He's just different. Like, they're both very different characters, but, playing through this, really makes me see Cloud in a different light, as well, and his motivations and kind of his personality and stuff make a lot more sense.
Like, it really, again, much like Sephiroth, the way they present Cloud in this game explains why Cloud is the way he is in 7, and just that big change, and, he went through some fucking trauma at the end of the game, so it, like, definitely, gives a little bit more insight and perspective as to who Cloud is, and, why he fucking, took on the memories of Zack, and, he... it was traumatizing what he went through, and you would never get that. You would never get that side of it. You just think Cloud's a weirdo for, assuming this guy, but when you play Crisis Core, you understand, like, it's like you said, like, I was bawling when I beat that game. And just like, and that was how we felt. Like, imagine Cloud in that scenario, it's just one of the things I loved was their relationship, and just seeing it grow and seeing him kind of mentor Cloud. And just to kind of piggyback off that, another relationship I really loved in that game was Zack and Aerith.
I wasn't sure. Like, is that a spoiler? Or is she in the trailers? Like, do we know? I didn't know Aerith was in this game.
Know she's in the game.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
But...
Yeah, Jeff had no idea. He messaged me.
I was like,
I didn't know
Aerith's
she's
in
in there. I
this.
was like, yeah.
I had no clue.
Yeah. But yeah, their relationship is just so adorable. Again, this game does a great job at adding depth and character to characters, like Aerith, who really didn't get a lot of screen time in 7, and she's a fan favorite. And it just makes you love their little relationships so much, because they're so cute together. Like, the chemistry is just there, and it's, I told Jeff, I was like, this is why I'm so adamant that Aerith and Cloud aren't, like, an item, because she was so into Zack, like, it's just, they had such good chemistry, and they were so cute, and, he fixes her little flower cart. Like, how freaking cute is that? Cloud didn't do that shit. He fell on her flowers, That
was, like, that was the other thing I really liked about the game. Like, I said it's a good length. It's only 12 hours, but, like, I think the pacing's really good. Like, there's a really good mix of, like, it starts off really action-heavy, but then it knows when to back off, and there's 2 chapters out of the 10 chapters where you're just kind of hanging out in the slums. The first one it's kind of weird. There's, like, a lot of time spent looking for people's wallets, but The second one, yeah, is you're just walking around with Aerith, fixing her flower cart, and then you unlock some side missions where you can build two more, and like it just helps further that relationship. Like Zack is so proud to make like this really awesome looking flower cart, and it's just the ugliest piece of shit that people have ever seen. And if you do it again, you can unlock more items and make like a really cute one. But yeah, just their interactions, and I think that's especially this, not having compared him to the original, but this voice actor for Zack, I think did have really good chemistry with Aerith. Like I really bought the conversations between them, and those are some of my favorite parts of the game. Was just that little bit of downtime.
And like something that I want to point out is what this game does, and I think one of the coolest things that Crisis Core does is it establishes the Buster Sword as a very important character in itself in Final Fantasy VII lore, because in Final Fantasy VII you're like, huge sword, pretty cool, right? He's got a huge sword. But in this, you learn that there's actual lore behind the Buster Sword, and there's a reason that there's a specific reason why Cloud wields it. It's not just because it's a huge sword; it's because that there is a sentimental connection and a history behind this sword. It symbolizes something. What it symbolizes, I won't get into because there are people who haven't played Crisis Core, but there is absolutely a very, I hate to use this term, but there is a deep lore, the deepest lore even, behind the Buster Sword that you may not expect. And that is something that like I feel like that just made the Buster Sword more iconic in Final Fantasy lore than it already was, knowing that there's actually a deeper meaning behind Cloud's wielding it. And that's one of the things I thought Crisis Core did extremely well.
Yeah, I agree. It's again, it's another one of those things that like we didn't need the origin of the Buster Sword, but it definitely, like you said, it makes it more than just a cool thing. It actually gives it some meaning, and kind of helps justify its iconic status. I think the game's like a mixed bag. There's definitely some stuff that's a little fan servicey, but in general, stuff like this and Zack's story, I think it's earned. Like there's the stuff where they had to give you like the origin of Aerith's bow and things like that. But it's all like Britt said earlier, the game doesn't take itself too seriously. There's a lot of moments where I laughed or chuckled, and the characters have a laugh, and it's just. And 7 has always been great about that. That's why I've always loved the original game too, and that's why I love that remake didn't shy away from that stuff. Is just balancing the kind of darker moments with some of the silliness and some of the humor and a lot of the heart. And I think that's why the game is still so popular all these years later, is the story and the characters.
Jeff, what if in Final Fantasy VII, like the original game, what if when Cloud had climbed back, when he fell into the church, when he made his way back to 7th Heaven in the slums, and they were like, how did you get back? What if Cloud had said, because the Buster Sword kept me out of handcuffs. The Buster Sword brought me back.
Yeah, that could be a thing.
I
don't know what to say.
The Fast and the Furious?
Okay,
come on.
All right. I gotta watch that a couple more times, I guess.
Good Lord, people.
Jeff, I have a question for you, just real quick. When I was watching you play the stream, you were like, it's kind of a bummer that the Buster Sword, isn't just this, like, it goes beyond Zack and Cloud, and I think it's because you associate the Buster Sword with Cloud, but how do you feel about it now that you've seen the whole story?
Yeah, same thing, right? Like, I was skeptical going in, and the game really won me over, because, again, like John said, it's really hard. I don't want to spoil it for people, but the Buster Sword, it's not just a weapon, it's legacy, and it's friendship, and it's, like, duty and honor and all those things, which again, it sounds cheesy, and it is a little bit, but like the game really earns it. The game really sells it. And same thing, like I can't wait to play 7 again, and just like everything's just gonna have a little bit more weight to it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And like I almost wish that you had played this before 7 remake, just to see your ending,
the ending
like, your
cutscene.
reaction.
Yeah.
Right. Because I imagine, like, not playing Crisis Core, you're just like, okay, like,
I just
Like, why is this important? But now it's like, when I watched it, I was, of course,
it
like,
hits so much different.
I went back
Yeah,
and rewatched
like
it this morning. The ending of 7 remake. I think I have a
Yeah.
different take on that than most people, but yeah, for sure. It's definitely, this is like something that goes very well with 7 and 7 remake. So I don't know. Did you guys? Is there anything else you guys wanted to cover before we kind of like?
No, I think we got everything that we wanted. I got everything that I wanted to get out. I would have already had the game completed because I love this game, but I've been preoccupied with adopting a new puppy. So I'm not quite as far as I want to be, but I'm planning on having it finished by within the next couple days here. It's great to experience this game again in such a beautiful new package, and it's even cooler that such a good game, such a classic game, is going to be available to a whole new generation of players.
Yeah, it's been really it's really wonderful, especially with you, Jeff, to see your reactions and hear your takes on it. As somebody who was a fan of the old Crisis Core, and especially Zack. I said it in your stream, but Zack is like one of my top 5 favorite Final Fantasy characters, and just one of my top favorite characters in general. So I like, for me, it's just really heartening and just wonderful to see not only you enjoy it, but that other people are going to get to experience this and have these same reactions and feelings as you. So that's what's cool to me. That's why I'm glad this is finally getting a remake or a remaster, because it's just it was such a wonderful little unnecessary but necessary game, right? Like I've every time something 7 related would come out, I would always say I really wish that they would relaunch Crisis Core. I didn't even expect them to do a remaster of it. I just wanted a port. Like, that's all I wanted, is I just wanted to play this game again. So I'm just happy that it's giving the love and recognition that it deserves. And like I said, it's just been so fun just hearing your thoughts as you go through the game.
Yeah, and I guess I'll just build on that for my final thoughts. I think that's the most important thing, is it, despite its limitations, and it does have flaws, but this is definitely one of the best remasters I've ever played. Remasters are all over the place in terms of quality, but the amount of effort they put into, like I said, just the lighting and like the color grading, like especially in the Midgar sections, it feels completely like it's the same world as remake, where just porting the PSP one, and that's important. Like, you want it to feel like you're revisiting this world and inhabiting the same space from a different perspective. So it's not just about good graphics. Like, I think it really contributes to the game's quality. But yeah, all the enhancements, the combat's been improved. It feels very modern. It's not quite as good as 7 remake, but I really don't think, aside from a few little areas, you would never know this was a PSP game. They could easily fool you, and like I said, I think it's I really don't know what someone who has no exposure to the series would get out of this, and I just kind of want to highlight that again. I don't think anyone coming in here, and then especially, like, I wonder if you play this and know the outcome of this, and then go and play like 7. I don't know how they'll approach it in remake. Like, it does take away some of the mystery and impact of some of the later revelations in that story as it pertains to who Cloud is. I think it's one of those things that's better to have that knowledge beforehand, and this just recontextualizes it. So I would say at least play 7 remake before you play this, but
I agree.
Yeah, but ideally, I think it's going to hit the best if you've played Final Fantasy VII, and luckily that one's available on lots of platforms, and I still think it holds up well. But yeah, definitely for someone who does like Final Fantasy VII, like me, and has never had the chance to play this, either because they didn't have a PSP or never got around to it, like, easy recommendation. I think you absolutely have to play this. It's not very long.
Absolutely.
And it holds up really well. So, okay, well, yeah, thanks again, Britt and John, for joining me for this, and thank you again to Square.
Of course, Jeff.
Thanks to Square Enix for providing the review code. Yeah, this has been another SDGC review discussion, and our live show airs every Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern. Until next time, kindness costs nothing. Take care.
Gacked.